Hi, I'm Patrick Cobb with AARP South Carolina. AARP South Carolina is pleased to sponsor the Post and Courier's Pints and Politics series. AARP is a nonpartisan organization. We don't endorse candidates nor parties. We work on issues important for families 50 plus in South Carolina. Follow us at aarp.org/SC.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Pints and Politics. Welcome again to Pints and Politics if you were able to stay for Michael Moore in the beginning. My name is Chris Zeller. I'm with the Post and Courier. Pints and Politics is an event that we have hosted for the last 5 years. Tonight, you just heard from Michael Moore, and we're about to hear from Congresswoman Nancy Mace. Congresswoman Mace, I'm not sure if you're aware, but you have been our guest 5 times. That's the most of anyone. So thank you for always joining us. And she is our 51st interview. Tonight we had more than 300 people who RSVP'd for tonight's event. So quite popular. Thank you so much. For those that couldn't make it, or for those that only got to catch part of it, we will send out a recording of both interviews in the next day or so. So look for that on your email. But overall, along with the 300 plus tonight, we've had 9,500 people who've attended this event since we started this 5 years ago. And this really couldn't happen without the support of y'all who came out here tonight. Our subscribers, thank you to our loyal subscribers for supporting local journalism. If you aren't a subscriber, please do so at postandcourier.com/subscribe. We have more than 130 journalists around the state, and we're really proud of the work that we've done. We also want to thank our host tonight, Hopcaw Brewing, which many of you are enjoying their beer. Yes, thank you. And our longtime partner, AARP South Carolina. We're so grateful for their support. Please welcome Patrick Cobb, Associate State Director. Gotcha.
Hey, good evening again. It's nice to be here with you. Welcome. Good to see you. And so AARP, we're nonpartisan. We don't endorse candidates, so we enjoy a brew and some good conversation on politics in South Carolina. I was trying to think of the Darius Rucker song, but I can't remember it right now. The one about beer and politics. I don't remember what it is. Whatever. All that on the table, there's a keychain there that has a QR code if you need information on where to vote, how to vote. Early voting ends on Saturday. How many of you have already voted so far? Look at this. Early voting works in South Carolina. It's awesome. So there's also a paper copy if you need it as well, too. So I'm going to pitch it back to Skylar so we can get on with the show. Oh, go back to Chris.
Yes, thank you, Patrick. Thank you again for your support. Okay, I already said this before, but please remember you got your rules of decorum. Please follow the rules so that we can have a wonderful interview for the next half hour. I want to also take a moment to introduce Skylar Croft, our political editor, who has been running this show for the last 5 years. Yes. And I'd like to take this chance to introduce our next guest. So, Congresswoman Nancy Mace is the current incumbent for the 1st Congressional District, serving in her 2nd term. Mace grew up in Goose Creek, the daughter of a retired Army general and a retired school teacher. After dropping out of high school at 17 and working at Waffle House, she earned her diploma through Trident Technical College. Nancy graduated magna cum laude from the Citadel in 1999, becoming the first female to graduate from its Corps of Cadets, and later earned a master's degree from the University of Georgia.
Thank you, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, and welcome for number 5. I mean, that's...
We meet again,
Yeah.
and at least there's a little bit of wind, like a little bit of breeze tonight. It's not middle of June.
Yeah, the last time we had the fan going,
everybody was
it was a
sweating.
little more difficult, yeah.
Yeah.
I see you're drinking the House Red. Our traditional first question here is, what's your favorite alcohol? And I think in the past you've told us tequila.
No more.
No more, really?
I gave up all liquor and Cosmos, all the skinny margaritas for red wine last year. I had a tumor. It was benign, but I have curbed all the sugary fun drinks, and I drink Pinot Noir mostly if I drink at all.
How about beer at all? Any beer?
No beer.
No beer. Huh?
None of the sugar, none of that stuff. Yeah.
Your opponent was a big advocate of a North Star beer or North something like that earlier.
I'm sure it tastes great.
Yeah, 4 years ago, you voted to certify the election results and acknowledged Donald Trump had lost. The attacks from him on the process have continued as a strategy to sow doubt, something being absorbed by his supporters. Whether your candidate wins or loses, are you committed today to vote for the Electoral College?
I did last time, and I will do so again. In fact, I was one of the few Republicans last time that said that the election was called, and I voted for every single state in the Electoral College, and I would do it again. We have a very independent-minded district. We march to the beat of our own drum, and my loyalty is to you and to the Constitution and not to anybody else. And in fact, in that vein, I am one of the top most bipartisan members of Congress. I'm ranked number 22. To give you some perspective, Jim Clyburn is ranked 419th out of 435. I'm constantly doing the right thing by the Constitution, doing the right thing for Low Country residents. Sometimes that means I get in trouble. In fact, I'm the only member of Congress, there's only one, who has voted to hold people of both sides of the aisle in contempt of Congress when they haven't showed up for a subpoena. I'm the only one who voted to hold those in contempt on the right and also the left, and that's not easy. And back then I received threats then, I receive threats now, and we have to be really mindful about who we represent. And I put every single day, I always put the Low Country first. I grew up here, I'm from here. In fact, I was in Jasper County yesterday, and we knew my granddad was mayor of Hampton, but we didn't know when, and so they found out, they went to Hampton for us, and we found out my granddad was mayor of Hampton in 1925. We had no idea. But, I'm constantly putting my constituents first, regardless of political affiliation or party. If you call me, I'm going to call you back.
And
thank you.
we asked this question of your opponent, but if you had to give a letter grade to the current Republican ticket, what would it be?
Well, okay, it's kind of a crappy question. I'm going to answer it. But each side's going to say, they're going to give each side an A. And I wish you would ask it as, what policy? How do you think your party is doing on policy? Because
we'll get to that.
No, but I'm saying right now, because if we're talking about spending and inflation, Republicans and Democrats alike, they get an F. They're the reason that the debt's going to be $50 trillion in 10 years. It's both parties. If we're talking about securing the border and immigration, I'm going to give both parties an F. If we're talking about women's rights, they both get an F because they constantly use hot topics, political issues as political wedges in footballs to raise money and win races. And when was the last time they actually ever accomplished something? And that's my frustration. I'm there to work. I don't have any friends. It's a very lonely job, especially when you call the balls and strikes. But we're there to work. We're there to get things accomplished, but everything's so political these days, it's really hard to. But I give both parties an F on most things.
Can you let us in on some of the conversations you had with the president when he endorsed you ahead of the primary? How did that go down? Were several conversations, one conversation? How did that work itself out?
Oh, well, I always make the ask, and then, you hope it happens, and it did, and we won our race overwhelmingly in the primary, and that's what it is. I'm really big on women's issues. So when I talk to him, I'm constantly talking about women's issues, whether it's victims of rape, incest, domestic abuse, domestic violence, IVF. And when the Alabama ruling happened, I was the first member of Congress in either party to file a bill to protect IVF. Literally the first one. When the mifepristone ruling in Texas happened, I was probably the only Republican to speak out against it. The same thing with the trisomy 18. I've been the leading voice on women's issues in our party for a long time, and we are missing the boat on it, and I'm stridently have been screaming at leadership up and down about women's issues. I talk to them a lot about women's issues. I also talk to them a lot about immigration as well. It's a huge problem at the southern border.
Well, based on that statement, did the Supreme Court get it right or wrong when they reversed Roe v. Wade?
Well, if you were to quote Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she said when Roe v. Wade happened 50 plus years ago that the ruling was unconstitutional. So, that's in her own words. Now, I will tell you, the left has used abortion when they had a supermajority. They said, we're going to codify Roe v. Wade. It never happened. Kamala is saying she's going to codify Roe v. Wade, but here's the math. The reality is, no matter who wins in November, unless there's a supermajority, you're not going to codify certain laws, including Roe v. Wade. So if she wins, let's say she wins president, we lose the House, we have the Senate. it's going to be gridlock. So that's not going to happen. And so I think we have to be realistic, and there are lots of women's issues we can talk about now as we figure out what do we do at the federal level or not do. For instance, obviously protecting IVF at all costs, rape and incest. We have a backlog. In South Carolina as a state as a whole, we have 100,000 plus rape kits that haven't been processed yet. There's a lot we can all agree on before we get to whether there's going to be a ban here, a ban there, a ban everywhere. There's a lot more, like gun violence, there's a lot more we agree than disagree on.
Well, back on that, my original question, did Roe v. Wade, did the court get their decision right or wrong?
Well, constitutionally, according to them, they did. Yes.
According to them, but
I'm not, there's the Supreme Court justices. They rule on a lot of things. For 50 years, we thought Roe v. Wade was constitutional. Turns out it's not. But now it's incumbent. States are changing laws. And in fact, we had a movement in South Carolina where they wanted to criminalize women who'd had abortions. They wanted to throw them in jail. Like, I was the first person to speak out against some of the craziness that's happening, because while I'm pro-life, I'm also pro-woman. I'm a mom of a girl. I was the first woman to graduate from the Citadel. I'm also a rape survivor, and I've been through the system. I recently went through some domestic abuse, and I've been through the system. I know what it's like and now how hard it is for women. And I'm trying to rewrite both federal and including state law. I mean, I've learned a lot over the last 2 years or so, and even though state law isn't my jurisdiction anymore, I have put together a coalition of state lawmakers in the state Senate and the state House to help strengthen our laws for women. And so most recently, I helped get the child luring bill signed into law by the governor this summer. A couple years ago, I did a women's prison reform bill in South Carolina. That was signed into law. So I'm trying to do my part where I can at the federal and also the state level.
back on the abortion question, some of your Republican colleagues have pushed for a 15-week abortion ban. There's sure to be other aspects of that bill besides just the number. But can you commit today to voting for or against such a bill that includes that limit at its heart?
I'm gonna have to read the legislation. So there, like, for instance, the exception for rape in South Carolina, I like that there's an exception for rape. But when you look and when you require women to report their rape to the police or law enforcement, I'm a hard pass on that. So I'd want to be able to see the legislation before I read it. I would like us to get in the room because although I'm pro-life, my limit's 15, 20 weeks. I've talked to women who are pro-choice and their limits are like 12 to 14. So I think if we were to take the labels away and say, at what point do we give an infant the right to life? Like at what point? One point is it? A lot of people are first trimester. A lot of people are second trimester. Hardly anyone is third trimester. So where do we have any sort of agreement? We all agree on IVF. We all agree on exceptions for rape and incest, fetal abnormalities. Almost all of us agree on those things. Let's work on those things now. Those are easy before we get to the heavy lifting, because I see, and I'm the only one, so I'm on the Susan B. Anthony list. I don't have an A, I have a B. I'm the only one on that list with an asterisk. And you know why I have an asterisk by my name on the pro-life list? It's because I work to get birth control into the hands of women. I'm one of 8 Republicans who voted for a contraception bill led by Democrats. One of 8. I have supported women getting access to birth control at their pharmacies. I have a bill that would expedite the FDA approval for birth control. I've worked on contraception, contraceptives. I've been a really huge voice on these issues, and you know, I get in trouble for that. So because I'm pro-birth control, I'm now on a list with an asterisk. That's fine, because I want women to know I'm going to fight for them. Your issues are my issues, and I see it every single day, and I'm the loudest, probably most obnoxious voice for women on the right side of the aisle in Congress today. And that takes a lot of work, and sometimes that means you get in trouble. Sometimes that means you get an asterisk. It's fine.
Well, again, back on that question, would you support the 15-week ban if that is a central part of any such bill that we have yet to see?
As long as it's common sense and both sides agree. 15 to 20 weeks, second trimester, both sides have to agree, though. There has to be common ground. You can't do it one-sided. It's way too important of an issue. People are too passionate about it. I'm too passionate about it to be partisan. You just can't do it.
All right, let's go to our AARP question of the day. This is their question. What are your ideas to make Social Security solvent? And please be specific. What ideas do you like out there that may not be at the top yet?
Well, Social Security will be insolvent about a decade from now, if not sooner, because Republicans and Democrats alike are spending like drunken sailors. And in fact, the debt ceiling bill done by my party last year, and I voted against it. And if you follow me on Twitter or on X, I explained the bill to you. It was called the debt ceiling bill. Were there any limits to the debt in the debt ceiling bill? No, there were not. Literally no limits to the debt, and that was Republican-led. So I voted against the bill. I have voted against all the spending bills because of the ridiculous nature of it. Now, I have a bill. It's called the Penny Plan. I have done it with Senator Rand Paul every congressional session. It would help resolve Social Security issues by balancing the federal budget and pre-COVID dollars and pre-COVID spending levels, which was significantly lower than they are today. You could cut 1 penny for every future dollar under that plan and balance the budget in, guess what? 5 years. Now in thank you. Well, one penny. But in post-COVID dollars, because they're spending so much of your money, it would take almost 6 cents on every future dollar. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually pretty significant, especially when you're talking about discretionary versus mandatory. But a plan like that would solve a lot of the problems, including the Social Security problem. I don't want to tax Social Security. I think that's something that we should take the tax off of Social Security because inflation is so high, the cost of groceries and gas is so much, to help relieve some of that pressure from those who are retired. So.
And we put out a call out for questions from our audience and readers, and most of them were geared towards you, so that you get the great bulk of them. This is our first one that came from just a reader. Why would you support a felon, serial liar, sexual predator, and someone who tried to overthrow the government and the peaceful transition of power? Okay.
Well, I answered that question on George Stephanopoulos 10 times in 10 minutes, and there's a defamation case over it. But, if you look at the top of the ticket on the other side, we have a candidate, a nominee, and a vice presidential nominee, and I'm a woman, first woman to graduate from the Citadel. They can't define what a woman is. So I just, and they say...
No shouting.
This is my way of answering the question. Everybody gets a voice. My opponent got his time. I'm having my time now, and I hope that you will respect it. What was the original question? I'm supporting him. I voted already. I voted for Donald Trump. I did it. So, and I'm not going to be shamed for it. I've been shamed enough. That interview was tough. My 14-year-old daughter was there. She had to go through a lot for that. I'm not going to be shamed again over it.
Well, I'm not trying to shame you, but they're yelling to answer the question. But again, let me ask, why would you?
I did. I supported him. I voted for him. Okay. And I hope he's president on November 6th.
And here was another submitted question. You recently posted about helping secure the $195 million federal grant that will help Long Point Road out here with port traffic. But you also voted against the Biden administration's $1 trillion infrastructure package that increases the pot of money for projects like this. You seem to be taking credit for something you opposed now as part of your campaign. Can you speak to this?
I speak to this all the time. I actually hold a lot of town halls. Number one, I want to tell you, and I've got part of my team here today, we actually have a grants director in the office. Not every congressional office has one. We have been very successful in getting both authorizations and funding, including this particular grant, $195 million grant, is right off for the intersection here at Long Point Road. It's the largest grant ever given to the South Carolina Department of Transportation. And so while I will vote against a lot of the spending, like the omnibuses and the continuing resolutions, I vote against wasteful spending every single time. I vote for appropriations bills that I feel are responsible spending, but very few of those actually pass and get into law. And so once the money is appropriated, your tax dollars, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, are just as valuable as someone in New York or California. That means that I'm going to go after our fair share. And in fact, in that infrastructure bill that I voted against, I had $1.2 billion in there for the Low Country. It wasn't even in my district. It was technically in Jim Clyburn's district, but it's going to cost $1.2 billion to redo the interchange of I-26 and 526, which we all know we desperately need. That money was in the bill. It got kicked back out. My problem with the bill since I voted against it, and that's part of the question. It was $1.2 trillion in, quote, infrastructure. You had $42 billion for broadband. Did any broadband get sent out or get developed over the last 2 years since the bill was passed? Hardly any. On the surface transportation part of that bill, $1.2 trillion of that, $110 billion was for surface transportation, which would be roads and bridges. Of that $110 billion, $70 billion was for public transportation, which all of us in this room support. That means left over was $40 billion for roads and bridges for the entire country. South Carolina as a whole in that bill got $6 billion. Do you know what we were already going to get without that bill? $5 billion over 5 years. So we were going to get $6 billion over 5 years. And because we were already guaranteed to get 5 of the 6, our state only got $1 billion in new money over 5 years in that legislation. And that was the lie that both sides told about that legislation. It was not all toward roads and bridges and infrastructure. So when there are grants, you can be for sure, I'm going after it. I just got a $500,000 grant for Berkeley County for 4 law enforcement officers for the county to address the excessive amount of gun violence in Berkeley County over the next 3 years. That cost $500,000. We wrote a letter. We got it done. We got it done the same day that Sheriff Dwayne Lewis called. I work around the clock to get grant funding, and I can't tell you, it's hundreds of millions of dollars that we worked. I got over $20 million for the airport in Hilton Head Island for their expansion via a grant program. I got over $1 million, $1.3 million for Beaufort County for a cybersecurity hub. So if it exists, we're gonna go after it. We just helped Dorchester Paws. I'm a big animal rights person. We just helped Dorchester Paws with a letter for a grant for a $30,000 grant to help them. So, I mean, we're constantly working around the clock. I have a special position within my office that I created 2 years ago just for this. If the money exists, your tax dollars are equal to anybody else's in any other state, and I'm going to make sure we get our fair share because you've paid into it.
All right. What is the biggest lie or whopper you've heard from Kamala Harris? What sticks with you the most?
I just want someone to ask her what a woman is. I mean, like, for real. This whole gender bender thing, it really grates me. And the other thing is that the administration has lied about is about the FEMA funding, the FEMA bill. That's one of the biggest lies that was told in the last couple of weeks because of the storm. So, you know, I did this bill a couple weeks ago. I talked to Steve Scalise, and we're supposed to vote on it when we get back. He wants to have a vote on it. But again, this is not one party. Both parties did this, not once but twice. Both for fiscal year 23, they voted on in December of 22, and then for fiscal year 24, FEMA was given $1.45 billion to house and feed illegal immigrants. That is a fact. We voted on it, I voted against it. And so what I want to do is, they lied, they said that wasn't true. That is true, that is a fact. I think the number's closer to $1.7 billion. But what I want to do is take those unspent FEMA funds, we're going to vote on it, and give it to Hurricane Helene, Hurricane Milton victims. Both sides lie. I don't like it. I get in trouble a lot because I call the balls and strikes. I call both people out all the time. Again, I'm the only member of Congress who's voted to send people to jail for contempt for not coming to Congress for a congressional subpoena. There's nobody else out there that takes the kind of stand that I do constitutionally, because I really do believe in what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing, and it's worth all the risks. I don't mind the arrows. I don't mind the attacks. I'm going to do the right thing by you every single time.
Is your issue with the FEMA money the fact that the government is spending it all, or the government is spending it through FEMA?
Well, we shouldn't be feeding and housing illegally. If you come here illegally, the incentive is here. It is a fact that they're here illegally. It is a $1.45 billion program in FEMA. It is a fact. We voted on it twice, once in fiscal year 23, once in fiscal year 24. That is a fact. Republicans also voted for it, by the way. It was both parties doing it. But, you know, my problem is, if it's FEMA, FEMA was created to prepare for and respond to natural disasters. That is their mission. Any dollar we give FEMA should be utilized in their mission and nothing else. And the whole thing with illegal immigration, we are incentivizing it by housing them and feeding them. Let's fix it with the visa work program. We have these arbitrary caps on visas. We need workers. We need H-1B and H-2B visa workers here seasonally every single year. We can't get enough because of the arbitrary caps that we have. But again, Neither side. One side wants amnesty, the other side wants a wall. And neither side want to talk about the common ground and the common sense solution we have to the problem in this country. I believe the solution is via visas, but that's another. I got a bill for it. We're going to release it in a couple months.
So your issue is the housing in general, just even having that as a
I don't want to
government
incentivize
offer.
illegal immigration. You gotta come here legally. You gotta get in line like everybody else that came here legally. And if you want to work, let's give you a worker's visa. Let's know where you are. Let's make sure you're paying taxes. Let's do it seasonally. Let's do it the right way. The legal way is the right way. We need the jobs. There's no question about that. But again, both sides use it as a wedge. Both sides use it to fundraise. Both sides use it to win elections. When was the last time either side did anything to solve the problem? They haven't.
What is the biggest lie or whopper you've heard from your opponent, Mr. Moore?
I don't know where to start. He lied about his endorsements. I think we posted about that, or we're going to post about that. It's just, we can agree to disagree. We will not agree on every issue. We're a very politically diverse district. But I will always tell you the truth. And when I tell you the truth, I will back it up with receipts. I will back it up with facts. I will back it up with screenshots and documentation to say, no, this is what's really going on. Because the gaslighting going on in this country right now, you don't even know what media to trust. On either side, because of the gaslighting that goes on, I just can't tell you. It goes back to the FEMA bill. I mean, literally, someone just shouted from the back that I'm lying. I'm not. We literally voted on it not once, but twice, to the tune of $1.45 billion. And so I want people to know the truth. And that's why you'll see me on social media when I read a bill and I vote against a bill or I vote for it, but particularly when I vote against it, especially on the spending bills, this is why I oppose it. And for every good idea, like there were some good ideas in the debt ceiling bill. There were good ideas in the bipartisan Senate and immigration bill. But when you read the actual fine print and you saw for every good idea, there was a loophole to get around the good idea because Congress is lying to you, that's not okay. Because I went to the Citadel. You don't lie, you don't cheat, you don't steal, and you don't tolerate those who do. And sometimes by having that moment of honesty and integrity, you get in a little bit of trouble, you get an asterisk. So, and that's okay.
How do you see the war in Gaza and Lebanon ending, and what would be the best outcome for U.S. interests?
Well, number one, I want our Jewish residents to know you have a friend and an ally in me. When Hamas invaded Israel, our office worked around the clock for the first 2 weeks and rescued over 24 Low Country residents who were stranded in Israel. Number one. And me and my staff, we've never been to Israel, but we were trying to, get people to Tel Aviv, get them in a car, get them a hotel, then get them to Jordan, get them to fly out, because the State Department was not lifting a finger to get our people out in the first 10 to 14 days of that conflict. So number one, I am worried that it's not going to end. I am very worried. And so because of the money that Iran has been given, whether it was the $100 billion in cash a couple of years ago, whether it was the $6 billion in March that they got access to in foreign banks, the JCPOA, if you read the fine print, Iran is going to be able to get access to lethal aid and arms as certain provisions within the JCPOA start to sunset. Some of those arms sunsets started in April. And so when it sunsets and they get access to nukes, I think it's a really dangerous situation. So we have now, and this has been, again, both parties, the Taliban right now are not designated as a terrorist organization. That's crazy. You have the Houthis in Yemen who are bombing U.S. military assets, who are also bombing parts and ships and containers in the Red Sea, trying to disrupt trade for the U.S. and our allies overseas. But we have designated the Houthis, for example, as the lowest rung of terrorism, okay? Which means that neighboring countries like Saudi Arabia, they get bribed by the Houthis, they pay the bribes, meaning they're paying the salaries of the Houthis. That is a problem. I would like any administration to increase the level of designation for terrorism for the Houthis, for example. I'm worried about the proxy with Hezbollah. I mean, they're getting funded by Iran. The Iranian people are beautiful people. They want democracy. They want freedom. They want basic human rights. And I've done a lot to work with them. But the regime is a terrible regime. I've met with prisoners of war, former prisoners of war from Iran. If we keep giving Iran money, if we keep giving NGOs money that are hiring terrorists within those organizations. This is just going to continue. And Israel is just the tip of the spear right now. It's Israel today, but who will it be tomorrow? And when is it going to be the United States? And so I abhor all terrorism of all kinds here and abroad. I will give Israel everything that they need to win the war, because if they win, we win, and there will not be World War III. So I would implore everybody to support one of our fewest allies, our ally Israel, and the only democracy in the Middle East. And she's our friend, and we got to support her 100%, and I'm all in.
In the past, you've said that one reason why you voted against continuing aid to Ukraine was that you wanted to see an accounting of the weapons going through there. But very easy question. Do you want Ukraine to win its war with Russia?
100%.
Yes or no?
I don't want Putin to win. I don't want it. But I learned something. This is an interesting little tidbit. And if you follow us on social media, we talk about it. We had a field hearing. I'm on the House Armed Services Committee. We had a field hearing in Silicon Valley about a month ago, sometime in September, with the chairman, Mike Rogers, on House Armed Services. And we had different tech companies, but also folks that build equipment for the Pentagon and DoD, et cetera. One of the things that they said, and we just learned this in September, is that some of the equipment we've sent over to Ukraine, not just the billions of dollars and that sort of thing, but some of the equipment the U.S. has sent over there doesn't work. And so, we're going to be looking into this and investigating and figuring out what is going on and what equipment is it and how much is it, how bad is it. But we have got to fix the procurement process in the U.S. So if we're going to send $100 billion in lethal aid to a country to win a war, we got to make sure our equipment works. And if it doesn't, why not? And we have a very bureaucratic government, which has then turned our private contractors into bureaucracy as well. And it's slowed down the process. We can't afford to have a slowed down bureaucratic procurement process for lethal aid and arms when China's working so fast, and China now has a trifecta with Iran and Russia. We got to work smarter, not harder. And I would like to see us work more like a business than a bureaucracy and fix that problem. Because if we're sending that kind of money and aid over there, we got to make sure it works.
There have been nearly 400 mass shootings in the country this year, by definition, where 4 or more people are injured or killed. There doesn't seem to be a unified message coming out of the Republicans on how to address it. Does it need to be addressed?
I totally agree. Yeah.
What would be your preference to approach such a thing when it seems to be another fact of life in America?
Yeah, well, and unfortunately, in the Low Country, we are no stranger to mass shootings. I remember when Parkland, Florida happened, I was a newly elected state house lawmaker, and I sat in the carpool line after Parkland, completely in tears, dropping my kids off at school. Is my kids' school going to be the next location of a mass shooting? What does the security look like at my kids' school? Are people buzzed in? Is there a magnetometer? How can somebody bad get into the school? And we all parents that sit in the carpool line, we think about that day in and day out. I did a bill right after Parkland, Florida. I was newly elected. It was the Law Enforcement Data Integration Bill in the State House. I had just about everybody lined up, but I had one Republican who killed the bill the night of the budget. It was to put together all of the law enforcement, all the criminal data that we have in 8 or 9 different agencies in the state into one single repository, one single database. So if you're a bad guy trying to get a gun, you wouldn't be able to get a gun. And Republican, or a certain Republican who then primaried me 2 years later, she killed the bill. And I have worked steadfast on this issue. We know that one side wants to take away all the guns. The other side, is 2A all the way. It's another issue like abortion where is the common ground? I'm a constitutionalist. I'm going to respect people's constitutional rights. However, I was a mile away from IOP, the mass shooting where 6 people were shot. It was 5:35. We were walking out the door to go to dinner with me and the kids. And we get to the IOP connector, and all these first responders are coming onto the island. And literally when we found out what had happened, because I'd called the police, out of the mouths of babes, my teenagers said, "Mommy, where is the Amber Alert to tell us we're near a mass shooting?" Because we were just 2 blocks away at that point from that mass shooting. We had no idea. And so I drafted a bill that would allow our law enforcement to have an Amber Alert system within a certain range to let you know that there is one. I want our databases with criminal data. We're going to do a background check. It's something 95% of us agree on. All the criminal data should be in there. If you're a bad guy trying to buy a gun, you shouldn't be able to, but you have to have the criminal data. And there are multiple federal databases. There are dozens of state databases in every state. There's a way to fix this where you're not violating one party or the other. There's a lot more common ground. I want to see our schools and churches and synagogues hardened. We actually have a manufacturer of bulletproof doors in Ladson. They are cost efficient and they work fantastic. I mean, there are just so many things that we can agree on. But mass violence is one. My kids practice at Pepper Hill. But 2 years ago, we had a shooting in the parking lot at Pepper Hill. A guy shot over 40 rounds in the parking lot. I mean, so it's personal, and unfortunately, we've had a huge issue here. And I said it earlier, but in Berkeley County, I just helped the county get a $500,000 grant for the COPS program because there's a lot of gun violence in Berkeley County, a lot of illegal firearms, to fund 4 law enforcement officers over the next 3 years to address the problem.
Should fortification of churches, synagogues, schools, and other structure be a federal responsibility?
I think it's federal, state, and local. Absolutely. There are actually federal grant programs because we're looking into this for a couple of school districts in the Low Country, Dorchester 2 being one of them that are looking at it, that want to harden their schools. And so I have toured R2P doors a couple times to see what their program is. They're actually putting bulletproof doors in Congress. So after J6, they're doing all the hardware installation for bulletproof doors at the U.S. Capitol. But I would love to see their doors in every Low Country school. Again, that's something, no one's going to disagree with that. Because you need 6 to 8 minutes if there's a live shooter before the police get there and take action. And what that door can do is save all the lives if you're able to hide behind that door for 6 to 8 minutes.
Well, I hate to say this, but I have 75 more questions, but I'm getting the off the stage.
I would answer all
right
of
now.
them. I have no filter.
This
It's
went
fine.
incredibly fast, but all I can do is thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you, crowd. Thank you, Hobcaw. Please stay attuned. We're going to do this again as much as we can. And again, sign up for Post and Courier newsletters. AARP, I forgot about them. I'm getting old myself. So let's go in that direction. So we're going to finish with our speed round. Very quick, easy questions.
Okay.
Some, maybe not. We saw you on CNN get in an argument with the panelists over the pronunciation of the vice president's first name. Some of the table accused you of being intentionally disrespectful. From here on, tell us, how do you pronounce the vice president's first name?
It's Kamala, but I would love to hear you say how Bill Clinton says it. Joe Biden, Al Sharpton, Little John, and Sonia Sotomayor, they say Kamala. It's Kamala. I've practiced it. I don't get it wrong anymore. And that guy hit on me after the commercial break. It's stupid. You can't call me racist and then send me a kissy emoji and tell me how gorgeous I look. It's not how that works. The hypocrisy is so stupid and disgusting. Whatever. But that's what he did. I put it in the congressional record. You can see it for yourself. It's a fact.
Why is Donald Trump the best choice for women in the 1st District?
Well, as a Republican, he was the first Republican that we've had ever on the ticket put into our platform at the RNC, protecting IVF, protecting contraception, protecting access to contraceptives. And as a rape survivor and somebody who cares about rape and incest and fetal abnormalities, those sort of things, I know that I have his ear and I have his voice. He gets it. And that's important to me as a woman.
And last question, why is Nancy Mace the best choice for the 1st District?
First of all, I want to say serving you has been the honor of my lifetime. I never thought in a million years I would walk the halls of Congress and have this responsibility because I dropped out of high school. I've had a lot of second chances. I've had a lot of rough roads. And I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity. I'm married to the job. My staff will tell you I work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I love working for you. Like, if you call me on a Sunday, I will answer the phone. Even when I'm in church, don't tell my pastor, and you text me and you need something, I will text you back in the middle of the sermon. Okay? That's how passionate I am, and my employees are passionate too. But no one, I will promise you, we're not going to agree on every issue. We're a very purple district. We are a swing district. We're tried and true. But I will always work hard for you. It doesn't matter what the issue is. If you need help, I'm going to be there for you. No one has worked as hard as I have in this district, and no one will. I love the job. I'm 24/7, 100%, 365 days a year. I'm in it because I love it, and I love each and every one of you. Even if you don't vote for me, it's okay. You call me, you need something the next day, I'm there for you.
Thank you very much. We're
Thank
going to
you.
wrap that up. That's final. Appreciate it.
Everything that happens in politics is local. It affects your neighbors, it affects your streets, your beliefs, your emotions, your pocketbook. Everything is politics.
I love covering South Carolina politics because there are so many characters, so many big personalities.
And they're just people, and their beliefs and their attitudes and what they do, and it's an arena.
We have some great people on our team that have just a really deep breadth of institutional knowledge about the state and about the politics that are at play.
We know the politicians. We have their cell phone numbers. We are here in the State House with them every day. If there's something that I want confirmed, I can just walk up to the representative or the senator or walk down to the governor's office and ask. The Palmetto Politics newsletter has all of our politics content in one place 3 times a week. So you'll never miss a story.
It's going to be your best source of what's breaking in politics in South Carolina. When you have an organized, dedicated 5-member political team, I mean, you try to give the most coverage, the most in-depth coverage, the most accurate coverage, the most up-to-date coverage of everything in the state, and that's what the Post and Courier is doing.